coming out today. It's great to see you all. I appreciate you being here tonight. It's been a long time since I've been in the area. It's really nice to be back. Well, obviously I'm Rick Riordan, and I used to be a middle school teacher. I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for a long time. I also have 2 sons. One is 11 and one is 14. And I don't know if you guys know the story about how the series came to be, but really quickly, when my older son was about 9 years old, he was having a really tough time with reading, and he didn't like reading in school at all. And I said, well, isn't there anything that you like? And he said, well, there's one thing that we're doing that's kind of cool. We're doing a unit on Greek mythology. And he said, that's all right, I like that. And I said, well, I've taught Greek mythology for years. I taught it in 6th grade for a long time. Why don't I tell you some stories at home? So I started telling him about Hercules and Jason and the Argonauts and all of those stories. And then I ran out, and he got kind of mad at me. He said, Dad, tell me another one. I was like, well, that's it. There haven't been any new ones in 2,000 years. And he said, well, just make one up then. I was like, yeah, how do you do that? But I started thinking about it, and I came up with this modern demigod, and off the top of my head, I just named him Percy Jackson. I started telling him this story about Camp Half-Blood and Percy going on all these adventures. It took me about 3 nights to tell the story that was the lightning thief. When I was done, my son told me to write it down. And I said, no, nobody wants to read that. He said, no, really, Dad, write it down. Okay, fine. I wrote it down. The next thing I know, the lightning thief came out. And I always knew it was going to be a series of 5 books. And I can't believe that finally, after 4 years, Sea of Monsters, Titan's Curse, Battle of the Labyrinth, here we are. The day has arrived. The last Olympian, Percy's big adventure, is finally here. He's always known that when he turns 16, he's going to have to make a decision that saves or destroys the world. No pressure, though, right? Happy birthday. Well, the day is here, the big battle between the gods and the titans, and Percy Jackson has his day. Now, some of you may just be getting the book today, so I don't want to give it away. Some of you may have already read it, but I hope you guys like that adventure. My favorite part, though, about coming out and meeting people is not me sitting up here talking, but hearing any questions that you guys might have for me. Obviously, we're not going to be able to get to everybody, but if any of you guys have questions, if you're curious about certain things, I'd love to hear what's on your mind. Yes, sir, right here in front. What do you like? Okay, the question is, there's a great prophecy that happens at the end of The Last Olympian. I don't think I'm giving away too much about the story by telling you that, if you haven't read it yet. Is there going to be another series? Yes. I can't tell you too much about it, but here's how that came to be. As I was touring around the country, and I was telling everybody, well, it's 5 books, guys. 5 is it. I mean, that's where Percy's story ends. Well, everybody said, but what about this character, and what about that god, and what about that monster? You never talked about this. And I started thinking, there's a lot of stories that I can't fit into the 5 books. So, in late 2010, next year, we're going to do a second Camp Half-Blood series about that great prophecy that is at the end of The Last Olympian. Now, it won't be necessarily about Percy himself. You may see him. He will not be the main character. There's going to be a whole other generation of demigods coming into the camp. And at the end of The Last Olympian, you may have some ideas about where that series is going to go. But that's all I'll tell you about that. All right, yes, sir, in the hat right there. My favorite book to write, I like them all, and I see them as like one big story. If I had to pick one, I'd probably say The Last Olympian, just because it was so fun to wrap up the whole story and to tell how everything ended at the end. Yes, ma'am, great Camp Half-Blood shirt. I like that. Go ahead. Is it going to be mainly about characters you already know, or are they going to be new? They're going to be both. You're going to recognize a lot of people, but there's also going to be characters that you haven't met yet before. All right, let's see. Yes, there, go ahead. Where did Annabeth come from? She's one of my favorite characters. She's not based on anybody real. She's sort of a combination of different girls that I had in my classroom over the years. She reminds me of a lot of former students of mine, just sort of bits and pieces of different personalities put together. But she's a great character, and you will definitely see her again as well.